welcome back to The Big Issue on City TV and also on 97.3 City FM. This morning we are in the first part of the show we are discussing the $170 million judgment debt that has been awarded against the state based on the termination of a power agreement between the Republic of Ghana and GPGC, which is Ghana Power Generation Company. And we've heard from the Honorable Kujo and the Honorable Sam George. I'll give Honorable Kujo some time to respond, but I also wanted to hear from Nana Muesi and Franklin and Kujo Yauchi, and then I come back in studio, so if you don't mind. But just to make this interesting, I'm looking at two documents here. Franklin, good morning. Okay, all right.
Good morning.
Okay. Franklin, good morning and thank you for joining us. I hope you've been listening. And before I come to you, I just want to read two quick documents and take note of the dates of these documents. It's informative. So this one is dated the 12th April 2018 from the Ministry of Energy to the Office of the Attorney General and Minister of Justice. So it says that we write with reference, it's headlined, Re-Emergency Power Agreement between the Government of Ghana and GPGC Limited. We write with reference to the various correspondences on the above subject matter. As you are aware, the Ministry of Energy by a letter dated 13 February 2018 terminated the emergency power agreement between the Government of Ghana and GPGC Limited dated June 3, 2015. This followed Cabinet's approval of the recommendation of the Power Purchase Agreement Review Committee as reviewed by the Attorney General's Office. In its response dated 26 February 2018, GPGC rejected the basis for our termination and insisted that GOG continue to fulfill its obligations under the EPA. It appears from their letter that GPGC has continued with the development of the project. After careful consideration, the ministry is contemplating the deferment of the project rather than its termination, because it appears the termination of the EPA may prove costlier to the Government of Ghana than was originally anticipated. It is expected that GPGC will be called back to the negotiation table to discuss the terms of the deferment, and in the process, attempts will be made to obtain better terms than those currently contained in the EPC. So it does look like the Ministry of Energy tried to find a solution to this matter that would not end up in arbitration. This was before the arbitration, if I'm looking at the dates.
So what the document, just quickly, the documents you've read,
yes,
are proof of the fact I made here earlier, a few minutes, that after the termination had been written, the Boachi Ejaku led ministry made attempts to see how well they could get GPGC back, because they realized that their termination was wrong.
Yes, so we had then on the 11th of June, the Attorney General's office responded. So this one went to the Honorable Boachi Ejaku, who was then Minister for Energy. And it says reference is made to a letter numbered ZA53, then dated 12 April 2018, requesting the advice of the Attorney General on the Ministry's decision to negotiate for the deferment or for better terms of the above-mentioned emergency power agreement. We are of the opinion that the agreement having been abrogated cannot be negotiated for improved terms as it is no longer in existence. The parties may, however, negotiate another agreement which must be submitted to Cabinet for approval. And that line is quite informative. The parties may, however, negotiate another agreement which must be submitted to Cabinet for approval. You may revert to us if you require any further clarification. Best regards, signed, Gloria Efua Ekufu, Miss Attorney General and Minister for Justice. So just this, I'm adding these two documents to enrich the conversation and better inform it. But Franklin, your thoughts so far on the debate we are having in trying to unravel this situation? If you listen to Honorable Kujo, he says, look, the government has good intentions. Basically, we've signed a raft of poor agreements that they have successfully, if you listen to him, tried to put in a better context to save Ghana more money. And if you look at the bigger picture in terms of the agreements with other power producers, they have indeed achieved that. And the fact that this has gone south, and he does admit this has gone south by virtue of what he has said, does not mean we should overlook everything within context. You do not agree that this has gone south?
This has led to this discussion.
This discussion, okay, I hear.
Doesn't mean it has gone bad.
I'll keep you in proper context.
Yes.
Franklin, over to you.
Well, good morning to the two gentlemen in the studio. They are good friends of mine. And good morning to your listeners and viewers. First of all, I think it has to be stated that the way our governments work in terms of the coordination of policy issues is a bit of a worry, if not a grave worry. The last two letters you read, for instance, buttresses the point that I'm making. There seems not to be some synchronization of the efforts or the decision-making processes. Because you can't in one breath be asking persons to come and negotiate and in another breath terminating the agreement. Having said that, for me, the one big question I have for my good friend, Honorable Joseph Pujo, and then the government essentially is that if they found it wise to renegotiate some of these PPEs that were said to be made from hell, I mean, you remember Mary and Co. What was so difficult in renegotiating this one, I thought? Because, I mean, it beats my mind. If you look at the Senate agreement, for instance, and to think that some of these agreements are still yet to come on stream, it's a bit of a shocker to have learned that this particular agreement or this particular PPA was dealt in a manner that was quite frankly disdainful and probably to the party. Maybe they didn't think the GP, what's the name again? GPC?
GPGC.
GPGC was going to go ahead and then press their rights in international courts. So the overriding question I have, if I'm married, which we saw the numbers, we saw the agreement, and we felt at the money that a marriage ought not to have happened the way it did, and possibly must have played a role in the renegotiation of it by this government. Not that we played a role, I'm just saying that the advocacy led to the current government going all the way to Dubai, somehow at the expense of a marriage itself. I mean, which was another issue. But if we could go back and bend backwards and decide to renegotiate a marriage, and even CAPA, as you've stated, what was so difficult in renegotiating this in a very calm, respectful manner? I mean, those are for me are the questions I have. As of what has obviously led to the judgment that I think it's just part of our body politic, really, which must not be excused, really. So until these questions are answered, and maybe we may never get the answers, what exactly necessitated the rush in cancelling something that obviously, from all that has been exposed right now, with the reduction of some of the committee's reports, the so-called technical committee's reports, it tells you that not all the facts were before the minister in trying to get this deal thrown under the bus. So now that it's been done, I only have questions from my good friends who were there as ministers and now ministers in another capacity. What exactly informed the decision when others were renegotiated? Couldn't we have done similar? So that's my initial remarks on this particular matter. For me, until that question is answered, I really do not see the point of this discussion anyway, except to say that at the end of the day, those who slept on the job to have led to this colossal loss of money must also be asked to answer certain questions. I find my good friend Dami's approach to this matter rather shocking, that all of a sudden he's pulling something up in the bag that is going to investigate using local CID to do the work. The question is, did he know that there were these set of conditions present where the then minister was trying to find a way of asking the company to come back to the table and all of that? I think he should expand his net a bit wider. But this whole attempt to make it look as if there's some criminality that has been location is somehow trying to take our eyes off the real issue, which is the colossal loss of the money. I want to still insist and ask everybody who took part in this decision whether there was no need to renegotiate this in a calm, sensible manner. So those would be my preliminary questions and maybe my remarks.
What made this hard to renegotiate?
Yeah, thanks so much.
I think it's a very relevant question.
Very, very relevant question. And
Can you answer it?
There is a document in my hand that lists all the event as it unfolded in terms of correspondences between GPDC.
Go on.
And instructively, a schedule was even a meeting was scheduled in the Ministry of Energy, at which meeting this issue of renegotiation came up. But GPGC's stand right from a renegotiation was that we can only accept the terms and conditions in the original agreement. And that made the whole effort at even executing a new PPA stalled.
So they were insistent on keeping to the old terms.
Exactly.
Even as part of the renegotiation.
Exactly. So I'm in a contract with you, and the contract has been repudiated by myself, and you, at a point in time, now comes to acknowledge the repudiation, but says that we can reinstate the contract because you have committed yourself so deep into executing the terms. That prompts a renegotiation, and then you say the new APA, Emergency Power Agreement, should be on the same terms as the old. That stalled it, because the reason why we were doing all these modifications and renegotiations was to bring down the cost. So if you come and insist that this is your stand, nothing should change from the original agreement and reinstate it on the old terms, then you are being difficult. But let me extend this remark. It's a general question I would ask, general, because sitting in there, I saw a certain demeanor among a certain country's investors, Italians. This is GPGC, and Italy is associated with it, right?
Yes. GPGC is a subsidiary of an Italian company.
ENI is also strangling Ghana through other contracts. ENI today, if you have heard Springfield, and the tie-in, it is also an issue.
But they're not related?
No, they are not related, but I'm saying a certain inclination.
Okay.
And it is a worrying to me. I'm saying this because why is it that all the negotiated agreement from different countries of different investors from different countries not leading into such challenges?
Which is why I asked you my initial question.
And true cost, and I mean cost, high cost. And why is it that my friend Sami and the government, the preceding government, were so interested also? Sometimes it makes you become a little childish and say, maybe that's the home of mafia. So, two mafias meeting. So, are you getting it? So, here we are with this, but this shouldn't take away, I think, Franklin's question. Efforts were made. I'm saying this on emphasis. Efforts were made.
And
but
it was just them being stubborn.
Exactly.
About the terms.
Reinstate on the same terms.
Okay, Sam.
You know, it's interesting.
I'm giving you leeway because I know you have to leave.
Yes, but it is just the sheer incompetence and lack of ability to manage on the part of government. How do you terminate my contract? After you've terminated my contract, then you now come back to call me to come and renegotiate, and you think that I'm going to show you any goodwill? If you were competent,
the renegotiation was at the instance of GPGC itself. That one, the correspondences.
Please, we've read this letter.
And I'm saying
before your production printed this letter, I had stated on this program on authority that even after the termination, the then Minister Boakye Ejaku and his deputy Honorable Oreku had made attempts in informal meetings and in writing
to get them back to the table.
GPGC to come back to the table. And now, thanks to your production, you have brought us this 12th April 2018 letter, where the minister is writing, Boakye Ejaku is writing to the Attorney General and saying that, look, we are now realizing that the cost of terminating will be more expensive than the cost of going on. And I'm saying that is the incompetence of the men that the MPP claims they have. If the MPP had competent men, before you terminated this contract, a contract that was originally not in the Dr. Ahinkra termination list, you added it. Before you went ahead to terminate, you would have done the cost-benefit analysis to realize that terminating it will be more expensive. You terminate my contract, and then you know what? This whole argument, let me give you a scenario.
Hold on.
Last scenario.
No, I just want him to respond.
It is like you impregnating a girl, a young girl, and then they ask that they should come and ask you why you, as a teacher, you've impregnated a 16-year-old student of yours. Then you say that, it's because when she was 13, she had a boyfriend.
Okay.
Listen,
that is what you are doing. You are saying because the contract was signed somewhere.
Go on.
You who have terminated it.
I have seen why my friend joined that incompetent, even though I don't know his own. But listen, in management, we say information is necessary for decision making. That I make a decision to terminate, and the following day, the third day, information comes, and I realize something.
That's
what do I do? Management. What do I do?
Honorable Kujo, don't go there.
No,
you are taking your people in
because I'm dealing with people, counterparty, too. And so I say that if you look at this event which took place in a meeting where GPGC itself, now in a letter dated 10th October 2018, wrote and reported a project status, gave a project status report, meaning that additional information. Are you getting me?
Yes.
And on the basis of that, request for reinstating
their contract.
PPA.
Which is why I asked.
So I'm saying that it is not even us saying.
I hope you now get why my initial inquiries to you were along a certain line, in the sense that I asked you about the Ahinkra committee, because if you listen to what the verdict said about the Ahinkra committee's work, anybody can take it and then start looking at how solid it is. Because now here you are telling me that the Ahinkra committee said, let's do this, pay 18 million. You go based on the Ahinkra committee, terminate a contract, and later on, additional information keeps coming.
Wait. You are losing out on something.
Which is?
You are losing out on something, which is time unfolding and events. You sign a contract, you have a contract. The guys, like Sami said, the guys ship equipment
to
Ghana.
Yes.
Exactly. So
a year after the contract was signed.
Yes. My point is that at that point in time, have we just opposed the final report of this committee, the recommendation date, and the date of shipping the equipment and committing themselves deep into execution of the contract? Have we just opposed the 2 times?
You can do that.
So I'm saying that if you are managing a termination or a post-event, after all those, and additional information comes in and triggers this renegotiation, they request that we go, and you agree, and you invite them to a meeting, and they say the new PPA should be the same as the old. What do you do?
Okay.
I don't know whether you get the point.
I get the point you're making. Now, just to wrap this up so that Sam can go, and then I can invite Nana Musi the 7th.
But before Sam goes,
no, hold on, I want to introduce Nana Musi.
Okay, sorry. Introduce him before he goes.
Why is Sam going now? I think we were wrapping up this conversation.
Yes, we are. Nana Musi is the executive director of the Institute for Energy Securities. He has joined us. Nana Musi, just give me a few minutes. I want to close up with Sam, and then we can go.
But before he goes,
I want to be here till the end of this conversation. I don't want to leave the conversation because I thought we were going to Sputnik.
Yeah, we will go to Sputnik.
I would leave for the Sputnik, but on this conversation, I want us to be to the end of this conversation.
No problem then.
Let's finish.
You seem intent on blaming Godfrey Dame.
That is why I wanted to respond.
If you look at, again, the timelines that we are looking at, which is what I'm saying, it's fair to blame the office of the Attorney General.
Since when did we start blaming offices in this country?
Oh. Okay.
Since when did we start blaming offices in this country?
Okay, go on.
The buck stops with the person who occupies the office. Okay? And I'm saying here that, look, there's a chain of events And just on the point Honorable Kujo made, that I was saying he shouldn't go there, I cringed. And every Ghanaian should be worried that the men we were told the MPP has that are running this country take decisions off the cuff of their hands without doing proper due diligence to get all the information before they take critical decisions. And so they take a decision, and then subsequently they are now finding out information that rubbish is largely the decision they take. So you see, for them to tell us, and you see, let's be clear. At the time you terminated the contract, the plants were already in Ghana. The plants had been shipped into Ghana before you terminated the contract. When you were terminating the contract, you gave the reasons for terminating the contract. The reasons why you want to renegotiate the contract are different from the reasons you gave for terminating. You get it? So you see, the reasons you are giving for wanting to renegotiate is that you now realize that terminating is going to be more expensive. But when you were terminating, you said they didn't have EPA permits, Energy Commission permits. Why? The renegotiation had they now gotten Energy Commission permit. You said they didn't have siting and building permit from Ponkatamanso. Why? Did they now have it? You didn't admit to the fact. You see, it is all of these letters. It is all of these letters that GPGC presented at the arbitration committee that even allowed our own rep, Professor Fiajo, rule against us and say, look, the Attorney General's department has been sloppy, starting from Gloria Kufu's time, and the arbitration process, which was led by Godfred Dame.
It was, according to the timeline, it was represented by the law firm of Amofa and Partners, as well as
the Attorney General's department.
Yes, and but you said it was led by.
Yes, but the Attorney General's department was led. The team from the Attorney General's department was led by Godfred Dame in arbitration. Okay. And let us be clear, let Ghanaians know that the reason why the High Courts in London threw us out was because the timelines are clear. You go to court, you go to arbitration. No. Let me wrap. I'm wrapping up here so that you go. You go to arbitration. The award is given on the 21st of January, 2021, a day before my birthday. and then they give you a 28-day appeal period. You don't do anything about it on the 25th day of the 28 days. You then go and show up and ask for a 56-day extension. And then when they give you, they say they won't give you a 56-day extension, they're extending it to the 8th of March 2021. You don't go, you wait till April Fool's Day, 1st April 2021, and go and show up in the court and say, I'm now coming to file my. And they say, look, come on, we're not jokers here. You get it? And this whole excuse that there was no Attorney General. Look, the Attorney General.
Was it an excuse?
It's an excuse that's been given.
I am surprised, so surprised, that Sami sitting in Parliament, knowing the governance system, knowing 21st January, there was. Have we appointed? Has Ghana appointed our Attorney General?
You had the Solicitor General. There was a Attorney General.
Why my references then were to the office of the Attorney General, and not the person.
No, Sami, wait.
So blame the office of the Attorney General.
Massa, stop this. Blame the office.
No,
you have never blamed the office.
They had the Solicitor General.
I'm coming there.
So why Attorney General?
Why are you drinking the soup?
If you have a personal issue with him.
No, I don't think that's fair comment.
Godfred is a very good friend.
Okay, then that's good.
Very good friend of mine.
I'm surprised you know.
I mean, I call him
then
and he will
put
pick my
your
call.
two pieces of knowledge together.
What I am saying
that
is
you know
this.
that
Listen.
There was no Attorney General.
Exactly.
Point made.
Listen.
Sami, go on.
Whether there was an Attorney General or not.
I'll blame Attorney General.
Oh, no.
That's the logic you want to.
No. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying.
Let him.
I'm saying that arbitration commenced not on the 21st of January.
Certainly.
The award of arbitration commenced 13th August 2018. Why are you people trying to confuse Ghanaians? 13th August 2018 when arbitration commenced. Who was the Deputy Attorney General?
Godfred Dame. And
I'm saying to you that the legal representation for Ghana at arbitration in 2018. Wait. The arbitration team from Ghana was made up of the private firm, what's it called, Amofa and Partners. And then the AG's own solicitors, led by Godfred Dame. Okay? And I'm saying that it is their poor and shoddy work at arbitration That led to the verdict on the 21st of January. So at a time where there was...
What did you expect to be done that wasn't done?
Exactly.
Per your reading of the arbitration's verdict.
Exactly.
The termination.
A bad agreement is a bad agreement. You signed it.
You see, Honorable Kujo, show me, look, the arbitration document is extensive.
Very.
Show me where in the wait,
agreement.
if you don't listen to me, you see, this is why I gave the example.
I want to hear.
This is why I gave the scenario. This is why I gave the scenario of us being asked to investigate a school teacher who has impregnated his student, and he's telling us that he had a former boyfriend. The student had a former boyfriend 3 years ago. It is neither here nor there. Whether the girl had a former boyfriend or not, you impregnated the girl. You caused us this judgment debt. You caused us this judgment debt with your wrongful termination. The arbitration court
agreement that leads to a judgment debt.
Please. The arbitration court never found the agreement to be bad. It never found the agreement to be faulty. The arbitration found the termination to be wrongful. This debt is occasioned by the wrongful termination. That is the simplicity. There's one reason for the termination. Wrongful for the
termination
judge.
wrongful?
If it was right, why is there 170 million debt against that?
George, catch a breath for me.
Let me drink water.
Yes, drink water.
Drink water, you are dying.
Let me hear. I didn't know you had become a chief. Anyway, we'll get to that today. You're in a different capacity. What have you made of the circumstances that have brought us here? I mean, we heard about this particular award sometime in January, I think, but it's come to the news after the government challenged the arbitration in a high court in the UK. But generally, what have you made of the signing of these PPAs? Have always proven contentious since they were signed, right from the time that the NPP government came in and said, look, these were bad deals that were done and we could have done better, and that they are costing us too much. That has always been the point of the NPP government, that these things were costing us just too much money. But here we are, $170 million based on that as well. But he also says, well, 170 million, yes, but if you look at what we've done in the past 2 or 3 years, we've saved you more money too. Do you agree?
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Good morning to you and to your viewers, and to my fellow panelists. Good morning.
Mama.
Let me do this intro. I will please ask Mr. Honorable Kujo not to demonize investors. It's very important, especially he mentioned Italians, where we should be careful. We don't do that. When you introduce that, what you are doing is you are going to different realms, and I'm not sure it will be good enough. These gentlemen have done very well, or this group, E&I, they've introduced a lot of domestic gas for our power consumption. They are working on fields to even improve on production as well. Whatever the challenge is with Springfield is another discussion in itself. And I'm sure that because government is a partner for both the Sankofa and the Afina field, you have direct interest. So you should be able to manage these two, feeding factions. So let us not demonize investors. Very important.
It's okay. It's okay.
Okay.
Points.
Let's not target them. And so that's my first intro. How we got here. Yes, somebody went signing a contract for 107 megawatts at this rate. Another group also reviewed this contract and many others and recommended that projected into 2024 thereabouts, 2020, 2021 going, our demand will not be in equilibrium with the projected power supply, and that we're going to pay excess capacity. It will come at a cost, so let's terminate it. For every contract, you have the benefits of review, amendments going forward, because market conditions change. So it's not in bad light to have a committee review that. Also, terminating based on the recommendation of the committee is taking action on their work and trying to save the country money. And so the step that we took it's not wrong in the first two phases I introduced. Contracting power to ensure that demand, power outages are stopped or doomsday is dealt with, and ensure that we are cushioned going to the few years ahead of us. And choosing to review your decision is okay. But what I find is this: you see clear discrepancy between the decision of the committee or recommendation of the committee and the factors or the reasons we adduced when we're terminating the contract. There was nothing mentioned like excess capacity here. It was a matter of legalities that were introduced. You asked for condition precedent and subsequent, and some of these conditions were so included getting a license. GPGC gets a license from Energy Commission. For God's sake, who is Energy Commission? It's an institution of government. The guys had really put in an application for the license. I'm just citing that one. And so if they had difficulty or they have not had it, who is to be blamed? The guys have gone ahead to start constructing the plant on the land that you didn't give them. They got one for themselves. You went in and you say, look, you don't have license and you are going ahead with the construction. This is illegal as well. You introduce that one. You ask for permits. The guy said, we have Katamanso permits. So we have something on the ground. Then you introduce illegality. I heard Mr. Kujo, Honorable, say that they went into a form of negotiation later when they assigned the letter giving the termination. Okay. And when further and better particulars have been made available to them on the siting, it means that they didn't have full coverage of issues around the plant and its construction and the way it was going. If you had been able to visit the place and look at the extent of work done, you will really assure yourself that this is where we've got into. What can we do? But you terminated before engagement started. Then, of course, we went to arbitration. It's another problem in itself. But that is not to say that those that did the contracting of this power don't have any answers to provide to Ghanaians. You see, as part of the roles of managers or officers includes accountability. What informed that decision to contract this power? For this rate, for this duration, what was your projections like? It would have cost us this much. So there's also questions to ask from that angle as well. But if they were wrong, assuming, without admitting, I'm sure, that they are wrong, if that's even the case, you are going to heal a situation, a wrong situation. Now I say, Obi Fumudra, Obi Fuminche. So if that's the cost we're going to incur, close to $100 million, if the plants have to be constructed and run full stream, and we're going to heal the situation, then you should avoid cost. Today, here we are, 170 million and counting on monthly basis, compounding going. So we ask ourselves, did we do ourselves any good? What normally happens is, contract is like a marriage. If for whatever reason you want to, divorce, you need to engage. And I think that the termination went ahead of the engagement. That's where we are today.
Okay. Quite a bit of a build-up from Nana Mwesi. Justice, could you out here?
Yeah, Godfrey.
Yes, thank you very much. Justice is the policy lead on petroleum and conventional energy at ASAP. Justice, so I'm sure you've heard all the parties now. I'll just take your quick input on this matter and then we can wrap up this part of the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, if you monitor the chronology of events, what jumps out at me is that not much attention has been paid to the terms of the contract and the actual progress of work that has been delivered before government took the decision to terminate the contract, as it were. because if you consider that the plants have been brought already into the country, civil works have started, and if you are going to cancel that contract, you are going to incur the cost for all those mobilization. You begin to wonder if those issues were considered before the termination was done. And if you consider that among the PPAs that were being deliberated on around the same time, AXA was part. This year, we got to know that government has paid 347 million to AXA, right, over the last 4 years. That should give you averagely $86 million as excess capacity every year to AXA. If you compare that to the 24 million excess capacity that GPGC was going to bring us, amounting to $96 million over the last 4 years, you begin to question what the real motivations have been for the cancellation of GPGC's contract, when other options like staggering the contract, deferring it to a time that you will need, and agreeing to some form of settlement for the duration that they will not come to commercial operationalization. Those issues throw doubts over what the true intentions of government were when they decided to cancel the contract. Beyond that, I hear Honorable Kujo says that we should consider this within the whole context of the contract negotiations that are ongoing. My problem here is that there seems to be no transparency around the negotiations of the PPAs that are currently ongoing. Until GPGC came, all these reports about a inquiry report and all this were secret documents that we couldn't find anywhere until it came. So you begin to wonder that what is the status of the negotiations and what is the status of terminations for the other contracts that were lined up to be terminated. Should we anticipate that in the near future, legal action will be brought against the country for such wrongful terms? This is only one of them that we have seen, right? And it shows how poor judgment was exercised on looking at the contract's terms and arriving at the decision whether to terminate or to go forward and negotiate an extension or a deferment of the plan. So we would need going forward to have more transparency. And I mean, this year's budget, government has indicated that it has done some negotiations with Senate and it's doing other. We need more transparency on some of these things. Where have you reached? What are the bottlenecks? What are the challenges? Then we will be able to, profile solutions as to how to restructure some of these PPAs that have come to hang on our necks. Beyond that, I think that there is closure really on how we got here. This agreement has gone to cabinet, has gone to parliament for approval. So if there are problems around it, then we have to start questioning the governance architecture around our approval of international contracts, as it were. This will be my comment.
All right, then. Thank you very much. And you've raised some very interesting points that I'll use to wrap up on this conversation. Honorable Kujo, I'll start my wrap-up conversation with you. Justice talks about, and again, that's what I'm saying, my opening line of questioning was very, very strategic. He talks about transparency in negotiations. So this large picture that you want us to see and admit to, that savings are being made based on these negotiations that you have undertaken. But we don't actually have information, and that is with reference to those who are supposed to have information, like IES, like ASEP, like perhaps other parts of Parliament as well, to confirm the success of these negotiations or not. Or we will have to fall on our lawsuits like this. Why should we trust that these negotiations will say work?
My response is very simple. You see the document that have been pulled around.
Which
Yeah, you are holding some document.
Oh, yeah.
People have read access to document.
Well, these are not access to documents. We are journalists. That's how we get
what
documents.
I'm saying is that anybody that is talking about this issue has had an access to some document.
Yes.
If they were in secret, how could that be available? It is because, Nathan, we express interest and dig for information on matters that come to the fore.
Let me ask you something.
So information is available. That's the point I'm making.
Yes, but let me ask you something. When we talk about transparency, some makes reference to 2 Ahenkra reports. Which Ahenkra report have you seen?
I've seen this one.
Which one?
This one.
The signed one?
Oh, he said 2. I don't know 2. I know this one.
That is exactly my point. You are both in parliament and he has seen 2. You have seen 1.
He claims he's making a claim and you are believing him.
I don't have any point.
I haven't seen 2. He says he has seen 2. If he said he has seen 10, how would I know? So hold him to how he got to know 2. Are you getting my point?
Okay.
So it is his claim. So please don't make the claim.
And it's readily available for anybody to see, right?
I'm saying it is available.
Yeah,
it is because nothing has come. That is why we are not interested in others.
Okay.
Yes.
Go on.
So, but Nana, I'm not demonizing it.
No, I don't want us to dwell on that point.
Exactly, because that's why I use childish.
It's fair comments, but let's go on.
So, but the termination, if we say wrongful termination, I tend to have difficulty with it because a decision is made on the back of information. At the point in time the decision was being made, assessed termination costs, assessed, not actual, assessed or projected or forecast, whatever word you use, was $18 million thereabout versus a $24 million per year. So at that point, the fair decision to make was end the $24 million at that point in time. Information and correspondences going on leads to a possible invitation of the parties to say, let's look at this again. And as told, that should also be taken note of.
Okay, another question. I'm sorry, I
Sami
keep
made
asking
the point
questions.
that is instructive. He says GPGC is the cheapest.
Yes.
I don't know where he's getting that information from, because I know the.
How much will they charge you?
5. It comes to a total of 5.5 if when he's comparing with 4 and so on, because the terms are here. The capital recovery is 3.7, fixed O&M is 0.3, which makes it 4, and the variable O&M is 1.5. The total is 5.5.
So your numbers are at 5 point something, his is at 4.
4,
okay.
exactly. So I'm surprised.
I'll respond to that.
Okay.
No problem.
Then this Godfrey Dame target. Sami knows he is a parliamentarian. He is a parliamentarian. He knows he was sworn in on 6th of March. He was sworn in on 6th of March. So the 21st January you're talking about and Godfrey Dame, please drop it, because he wasn't the Attorney General then. That I think you should. And then the 7.2 billion.
Yes, numbers that nobody can.
Yes.
He says the numbers don't work.
If you say the numbers don't work, I'm saying that the Minister of Finance came to Parliament, gave some figures, which were actual payment made.
Based on what calculation?
Oh, excess capacity, power that we did not use, and bills based on contracts. Bills have been sent to Minister of Finance to pay. Doesn't that worry you? Ask him. 2017, he is downplaying that figure. But if 2017 to 2020, the 4 years, he made his calculation.
At 900 and something.
$930 million
So $234 million.
and $240 million a year on Ghana for power we do not need. And that one, you take that, we should celebrate it. I am shocked that Sami is not condemning his own action. You sign PPs. We do not need them, and we are paying for them. And you think we should be, because it didn't come out as $4 billion and it came out $930 million, so it is nothing? If you are crying over $170 million, then you have to cry harder on $930 million that we are paying for powers we are not using. That is instructive. If NDC can cry over a $170 million loss for power we haven't had and has become a cost to us, then they should cry harder for the $930 million of actual payments we have made over the past 4 years for powers we have not used because of take or pay agreement they signed irresponsibly and incompetently. They did sign that and they have committed that. And when you see the 7.2 billion, it is a figure that emanates from projections, all the commitment they have made, some of which terminated, some of which deferred, some of which done this. All those, if we were to leave them to visit us without terminating some, without renegotiating some, the net effect on us will be this $7.2 billion. So they should celebrate us for doing what we are doing. Else this is going to visit us, and this is significant amount. You cause a mess, a cleaner is cleaning your mess, and you come stand aside and you are happy. Exactly. I mean, what kind of? It is only Sami that will do that.
I'll let you wrap up here. I'll take a quick break, and then Sami will wrap up, and then Mr. Amwesi will also. Nana Mwesi the 7th will also wrap up on this conversation, and then we can move on to talk about spruceness. So just a couple of messages. Interesting. Walaja Nakotia says there's no need to listen to any fairy tales. Those who signed this deal are alive, and they must be prosecuted. Policies are taking the destiny of Ghanaians for granted. Also, Charles Legon says Godfrey, politicians have a way of justifying reckless action in the face of the obvious. The youth of this country are not happy with this decision, and there will not be any hiding place for all of you. Good morning, Godfred. This is Kwesi Nsefo Befi from Takrade. Politics will kill this country. Oh? In fact, this contract obligation was done out of political mischief. The usual MPP and DC thing. Those who pretended over this should be made to account for it sooner or later to serve as a deterrent to other office holder. Okay. Honorable Kuja, a lot of people are not happy with your comments on the Italian side of things.
Oh yes,
so
that's why I use childish.
He's clarified it, so let's
go to it. I said
keep it in context.
It makes you.
Let's not hold it too much against him. No. There's always a pattern to these fraudulent deals that end up as judgment debts, but Drew justifying where you make Kuja Black was standing with high supporting against his own government. Ayene using his office to cook a terrible deal for GPGC that ends up as another $170 million. Kosame from Nima says, we sent the Attorney General and his legal team to go and defend Ghana at the arbitration court, not to go and lose the case and back to Ghana to be fighting the case on radio and TV. We've lost the case. That is Kosame from Nima. He says the Attorney General was not sent to defend the case on radio and TV. He should have done that at the arbitration. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, closing words on this particular topic, you hear from the Honorable Sam George and Nana Mwesi.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, office time. Sorry.
Mommy. Why be fair like that? I hold it in. You know the fair matter. I say hold it. Hey, office time. I'm sorry.
Oh. Beg your day. Office time. Asu.
Mommy.
1 million Ghana cedis up for grabs. Get your share of the Bet Planet Mega Prize Pool. More chances to win Super 6, a football race, and an extra boost on your winnings are waiting for you at Bet Planet.
I always love you.
For the best odds, biggest wins, and fastest payouts, choose Bet Planet. This advert has been vetted and approved by the Gaming Commission of Ghana. Bet responsibly, not for persons below the age of 18.
It can be prostate, cervical, breast, endometrial, head and neck.
colorectal, or any other cancer, they have no place here. Why? Because SGMC Cancer Center treats all solid tumors, no matter the stage of the disease. We use advanced technology like radiotherapy, brachytherapy, and chemotherapy for our treatment. Locate us behind Lakeside Estate, Community 8, Katamanso, or call us today on 0201 409 403 or 0262 253 328 for inquiries and booking, and your cancer burden will be a thing of the past. NAT, NAGRAT, ECG staff, as well as their spouses and children below 18 years do not have to pay to receive treatment at SGMC. SGMC Cancer Center, taking away the burden of cancer.
Masa, tam Maria, I'm kind of coffee. I am doing more budget bonnet. Have a beer, you can
Wait, say 80 local channels na mo hedo. And so pictures here clear. They are 5 times better. As in other channels that could be your hormone. So go to mention one time right away. Oh, what the pictures.
Who knows tomorrow?
What a picture. What you AD plus decoder or multi TV and now Electroland agent Piao. Natural local channels now HD the here is better.
Star 879 hash.
Numbers from Kubi box and now the advert 80 channels now.
Get an HD Plus decoder from now till the 9th of August for just $89.99 Ghana cedis and enjoy 3 months free subscription. Enjoy all the excitement and live sports action in the HD Plus Air Bosso Philippines promo. Promo lasts from 7th June to 9th August 2021. Visit hd-plus.com.gh or call 024-243-9872 for more info.
Half a nose for good things.
Welcome back to the big issue. Let me just wrap up on this. Sam George, the final words are yours on this, and then Nana Mwesi.
Go for it.
Yes.
I hold in my hand here the memo to Parliament, July 2015, by the Honorable Dr. Kwabena Donko, Minister for Power. Subject: Emergency Power Agreement with attached annexes between the Government of Ghana, Ministry of Power, and GPGC Limited, TAY, that's the TAY Energy,
signed or not
for the provision on a fast-track basis up to 107 megawatts ISO installed capacity of power deliverable services. You're asking signed or not signed? It is signed.
Okay.
Yes. Now, in here, and this is the memo that went to cabinet.
Okay.
On page 4, paragraph 4.1, financial impact. Table 1, capital recovery for this plant is 3.7 US cents per kilowatt hour.
Okay.
Fixed O&M charge is 0.3 US cents per kilowatt hour. Total capacity charge is 4 US cents per kilowatt hour. Not your 5 point whatever you are mentioning. I don't know where you're getting it. This is what went to cabinet. Please.
Hold on.
This
He
is
also
what
has documents.
Exactly.
So refer to yours. What does yours say?
He should show us his document that he says shows 5 point something, and then also show us where that document is coming from. I said this was the memo to Parliament, which includes a cabinet memo, and here you can confirm that's the signature of Kwesi Kwoti, the 2nd July 2015, Office of the President, Cabinet Secretariat, where it says cabinet approval is granted to the request to Parliament, signed. You asked me if my document was signed. Yes, signed by Dr. Kwabena Donko, Minister for Power. This is it, to Parliament. The hands out of Parliament is there to bear us out. Okay. Now show us your price and your document.
This is the document.
What document is that?
There's a compilation of synopsis of the emergency purchase agreement between Government of Ghana and GPGC.
Done by who? Authored by who? Authored by who? This is a document to Parliament. Your document is coming from where?
On this one, I will go with this document.
Yes, but
for now. So let's not argue too much. I'll go with Sam George's document.
So on the issue of cost, I mean, this
it is not,
came
but
to
it
Parliament.
is not.
This is what Parliament approved. And today, the Minister for Energy today and his deputy, Honorable Matthew Poku Prempeh and Honorable Reku, were all on the Mines and Energy Committee, and I have the Hansard dated 25th of August 2015, where they approved this report, this application with the 4 cents. It's in the Hansard.
I was sitting there in the committee. So when I say 5.5,
it's okay.
This is what came to Parliament.
I don't want us to wrap up.
I was on the Mines and Energy Committee.
Now,
so when I say 5.5, I know.
You see, this whole attempt to make it look like I'm attacking Godfrey Dami, no, I'm just pointing out his incompetence and the sloppiness on this particular job.
He wasn't the Attorney
General. Because, you see, again, you are wrong. Honorable, the arbitration did not start on the 21st of January 2021. The arbitration started in August 2018. Honorable, in August 2018, was Godfrey Dami Deputy Attorney General or not?
Was he the one leading?
Yes, he was.
A claim.
Yes. Was he?
You are making a claim.
Making an argument.
Hold on.
He keeps making the argument that Godfrey Dami was not there and I'm blaming him. Jack, the thing started in August 2018. In August 2018, he was deputy AG. There was a team.
He was not in charge.
Exactly. It's the point I'm going to make. Yes,
he was not in charge.
There was a legal representation for the government of Ghana.
Yes,
led by Amofa and Partners as a private counsel, and a team from the Attorney Generals made up of solicitors from the Attorney Generals led by Godfrey Dami. So what are you talking about?
Yes, but he leading does not mean the case is making it's a personal case.
Exactly.
But
he was not in
charge. Tell me which case the Attorney General prosecutes as a personal case.
I'm just saying, in making reference to Godfrey Dami did this.
Exactly.
At this point.
The same Godfrey Dami is saying that he is going to go after John Jinapor and Kwabena Donko. Why?
So that is the reason why you are
okay. If Godfrey Dami, if you think that it is fine, that the Attorney General can say that he will hold the then Ministers for Energy who signed an agreement after cabinet and parliamentary approval responsible. Then he who went to arbitration, like somebody said, we sent him to go and arbitrate in court, not on TV. And that's why somebody said the judges in London don't eat containment and light soup. You get it? So it is not about who you know. It is about what you know in London. Okay. Now on the issue of the 234 million, you see, Honourable, you are the former Deputy Minister of Energy. You know, somebody can make this allusion. Even me, I can make this allusion because energy is not necessarily one of my strong points. Okay? But even me, I know that no sensible country would say that their demand is 3,000 megawatts. So installed capacity should be 3,000 megawatts. There's something called reserve margins, which you always want to have to be able to take care of the need. You say we are paying money for energy we don't need. Now let me read to you from Daily Graphic, April 21st, 2021. We need to generate more energy. NAPO urges. The current Minister for Energy, April 21st, 2021. We need to generate more energy. The Minister for Energy, Dr. Matthew Poku Prempeh, has called for the need to generate more, not less power, as the country's power needs grow in consonance with its growing population and urbanization. Exactly. The minister made his observation when he opened a 4-day energy sector work program retreat for 2021 at Adam. Now, it's interesting because he spoke about the PPAs. He said, on the PPAs currently being renegotiated with IPPs, Dr. Prempeh observed that the challenge had been that these were negotiated in an emergency. At a time when the nation had fallen on hard times, and therefore meant we were in a weaker position to negotiate those agreements in our favor. Going forward, the minister called for a take and pay position and insisted that there would not be government guarantees with respect to future negotiations. We need to negotiate now, not when we are in hard times, Dr. Prempeh insisted. So clearly, this whole suggestion that we have quoted we are paying 234 and Samir and his people must be crying for Ghana because of that. When ECG themselves have told you at the Mines and Energy Committee that the cost of our reserve margin as a country is 200 million. So if we have any deficit whatsoever, it is 34 million. Now that's why I was introducing Valco. If you had gone ahead with making sure that Valco had come back on stream and the Sino Hydro, the reason why you're unable to activate your Sino Hydro is because you are not offering China bauxite, you're offering them alumina. For you to give them alumina, you must use Valco to process the bauxite. So when we were signing these IPPs, there was an understanding. At that time, there was no Sino Hydro, but there was an extinct cubic, which was going to give the same bauxite to Valco. So Valco was going to come on stream and process bauxite into alumina. Again, we also had the ongoing process that was supposed to improve. Yes, the ongoing process that was supposed to increase the amount of capacity that we were selling power, that we were selling to Burkina Faso, increasing from the 160 to 330 kVA. You came and truncated all of these things. So today, if you say we have excess capacity we don't need, it's because you stopped it. So look, let us call a spade a spade. And you say take or pay. Take or pay is bad. Well, for your information, this government has just signed the LNG, the most expensive gas agreement as take or pay. Right. So you say take or pay is bad, but this year, you've gone to sign LNG.
So I'm not George, your point is well made.
Interesting and happy to be among these two big men.
You're a big man yourself.
It's my big brother. Okay,
so
you are the chief.
Let's look at something here. We speak about excess capacity from only one angle, where we are talking about overinvestment.
Are we overinvested in energy?
It's another discussion in itself.
Okay.
But let me tell you one or more ways that you can have excess capacity. When you have repressed demand, you have excess capacity. We used to grow.
When you say repressed demand, break it down for my listeners, please.
Let me use suppressed demand. Suppressed. We used to grow, over the last 10 years, we used to grow our energy access, electricity access to communities, but by not less than 2.6% annually. So in 4 years, it should cover more than 10%. Over the last 4.5 years combined, we've not been able to increase it by more than 2.9% or 3%. So if we were giving this power to consumers somewhere for productive purposes and for whatever reason.
At what price?
So Honorable Kujo wants to say that our communities,
from your line of
our communities
keep talking.
Are not giving power because
they are not commercially viable.
They are not commercially viable. That's the conclusion he's saying. I have not said exports. I didn't say exports.
No. At what price means that
access to
demand,
electricity,
demand, an
of
element
which
of demand
is part of the
price.
Sustainable Development Goals globally. That your people
Access
need
to
to get power, get electricity to be productive. We have not grown it over the last 4 years by more than 3%. So electricity have a need, a use for, but we have not done that. Yes, of course, I don't want to mention the exports, but I want to look at our own domestic front. VACO is there to consume as well. So if you don't have people who want to use this power and are ready to use getting the power, you have suppressed demand and you will have excess capacity. That's the first thing. The next thing is that we don't pay for excess capacity. You will pay for idle capacity. I need to make that one clear. No machine is 100% efficient. So I have 200 megawatts nameplate capacity for my plant. 200 megawatts. There is no way I can produce 200 megawatts. Efficiency, maximum 95%. And so I can produce 185. The 15 megawatts, government doesn't need to pay for because we are using dependable capacity or available capacity. Okay? So the 180 becomes the available capacity or dependable capacity. If I'm only able to take 160 as per my demand, what my demand dictates is this. I'm left with 25. That is the idle capacity. That's what we use. So we don't use excess capacity. Point of correction here. The next thing we find is, I want to say is, we have doubts, IES have doubts on the $900 million
savings.
Claims as excess capacity payments. Total doubt. The only way government can remove
as said by the finance minister?
Of course. The only way government can remove this doubt is to publish the capacity utilization records, especially for Sen Power, AXA, and Car Power. That they alluded to. They should publish this. Greco has it. The Electricity Market Oversight Panel should have this. This is the only way to remove that doubt. They should publish it. because our internal checks shows that these are invoices raised for power used, generated, used, operational and finance costs. IES should be shamed on this. I put it on record. The only way to remove that doubt is to publish the capacity utilization records.
Honorable Kujo, that's work for you. Thank you very much. I will wrap up the conversation on this. Thank you very much, Honorable Joseph Kujo, Minister for Public Enterprise. It's always good to have him. Very, 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 very sound political mind. Former Deputy Minister of Energy. Also,
Minister
for Public Enterprises. Madam Wesi, the 7th Executive Director for Energy Securities. You get a lot of documents from them. They issue a lot of press statements these days.
They say no transparency.
They are doing well. No, from their own work.
It's not your documents, so. And even if it's your documents, you are not giving it.
Franklin Kujo will stay. Thank you very much as well, Kujo. When we return, we'll talk about COVID, rising cases in the Ashanti region, and the whole brouhaha over Sputnik vaccines, middlemen, and vaccines that are just not available. Big issue continues on that particular trend. We'll be right back.
City TV is live on DSTV. Go to channel 363. On GoTV, access City TV on channel 182. On a digital TV, please press the menu button on the remote control and run a new search on your TV. Take note that without an antenna, you cannot access City TV on your television. City TV can be accessed on a free-to-air digital box like the GoTV and StarTimes box. City TV, it's your world.
Welcome back to the big issue. We get into phase 2 now. We are discussing COVID. Yes, COVID has not gone anywhere. In fact, we need to be even more careful than ever before because it looks like cases are rising, not in the Greater Accra region, at least for now, but in the Ashanti region. And globally as well, if you look at the numbers, it looks like Africa's cases are starting to rise. In fact, this week we've heard from the WHO representative for Africa. We've also heard from the CDC in Africa as well of the need to be even more cautious because vaccines are not as readily available in this part of the world as we have in the West. So this week, for instance, we've heard from Dr. Michael Owusu, who is a virologist at the Kumasi Center for Collaborative Research, who wants authorities to intensify contact tracing. The Ghana Medical Association have also spoken and have asked the general public to adhere to all COVID-19 protocols to prevent the spread of the very, very infectious Delta variant. Now, the Delta variant has suddenly become very popular this week. There are those who are saying, well, look, stop causing alarm with all this Delta variant business because it was only seen in 2 persons at the Kotoka International Airport. They were visited, so there isn't really too much cause for concern over community spread, but the GMA says, let us still be wary. So we will hear from the Ashanti region where Dr. Usu talks about the rise in numbers and also hear from the GMA on the need to be cautious. And then also we are having a conversation or a debate about vaccines, and we now have the minority leader who is very concerned about the whole Frontiers Medical, the Frontiers Healthcare contract and other arrangements around it. So you hear from Haruna Idrisu as well and Dr. Ayu Efriye on this matter.
According to the Ashanti Regional Deputy Director of Ghana Health Service in charge of public health, Dr. Michael Roxinejane, the region in the last 3 weeks has been experiencing a surge in COVID-19 cases. Scientists at the Kumasi Center for Collaborative Research, KCCR, have corroborated the Ghana Health Service's claim of a surge in cases in the past 3 weeks.
For the past couple of months, we were recording 1 out of 100 cases. But over the past 3 weeks, it looks like we are beginning to observe some marginal increases, something between 5 to sometimes 15 out of 100, which is a bit unusual trend. And normally when you observe this trend, it should warn you that it is likely to result in much massive waves if measures are not put in place to ensure that we get this down.
Dr. Michael also further called on health authorities to put stringent measures in place to ensure the new Delta strain, which has been recorded in the country, does not spread quickly. Meanwhile, checks by City News show that adherence to COVID-19 safety protocols has been low, and some residents are thus urging authorities to intensify the drive to get people to adhere to the safety protocols.
Looking at the situation, some people, they are not taking the COVID serious. They are not wearing their masks. Even when you take a trotro, for instance, they are just congested and they are not wearing it. So I don't know, maybe the government should put something in place to enforce so that they can wear their masks.
In Ghana, I think they have to make it compulsory, the wearing of the nose mask, and then but people don't do it. And then even you can come and pass this place, the barracks here, you will see a soldier not wearing it. So you, the soldier, how are you going to enforce me, the citizen, to wear it?
The Delta variant, that particular strain, because of the way it presents and the rate at which it can infect a lot of people, what it is that we need to be very careful when it comes to our protocols. At this point, we don't have to let our guard down by way of adherence to the protocols and enforcement of same. As a country, we seem to be relaxing, and like you said, there are also pockets of infections coming up in some regions. We have heard some of them.
We are concerned about government not being sensitive to the plight of poor Ghanaians who may be returning home to the country as a result of job losses because of COVID, only to be charged for COVID, only to benefit a private player and not the Republic. We are concerned about it, and we think that you must probe further into this matter. As you know, this transaction was characterized again by the Nana Addo Dankwa government lack of transparency and accountability. When you ask them, they say, oh, COVID, emergency. So under emergency, our procurement laws must stand still. Is that the case? That because there is COVID in Ghana, our laws should not work? The Procurement Law, our Health Institutions and Facilities Act, and the Fees and Charges Act have all been breached. We are not a lawless country. We are a country governed by law. And simply, our procurement laws, settled law, must be respected. We have always been of the opinion that institutions such as Noguchi, as I have indicated, could have probably done this better. So we filed a motion. We pray that the Speaker admits the motion. We'll call for a bipartisan probe and inquiry into the matter. The report, if it's revealing, we'll call for heads to roll on this matter without any hesitation.
The minority knows what is right. They have all it takes to do the right thing. Running to the public to talk about a parliamentary inquiry is not a solution. For me, they could have just used questions, statements, motions to be able to get a speaker. It's as if they don't have confidence in the speaker, because any ruling on the floor will be done by the speaker. And so if you have a parliamentary inquiry, which is good, if you go to the Constitution, Article 35(8), it talks about how the state should be interested in corruption practices and also abuse of power, where the state means that we are an arm of the state. And for that matter, when they call for a parliamentary inquiry, I think that it is in line with the spirit that we all hold our leaders accountable. But where they have not exhausted the parliamentary processes and they run to public, then it marks of a bit of politics than trying to find a solution to it or finding answers to the question.
Yeah, so you've heard Dr. Uefree wrapping up just our catch-up segment on the COVID. And like I said, yes, it looks like we are definitely getting into a third wave. And to have this conversation with me, I still have Franklin Kujo, President of Imani Africa. Dr. Kwame Sapon-Siedu is with the CDD. He's a Democracy and Development Fellow. He's also joining us via Zoom. This is Professor Wandari, no stranger to listeners of CCTV and also watchers of CCTV as well. So let me say good morning, and let me begin the conversation from Professor Wandari. Professor Wandari, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for making time for us this morning. I guess I must begin the question from listening to Dr. Moeti yesterday. She sounded very worried, warning of a third wave on the African continent. Deaths are increasing. But for those who are in Ghana, they will say, what is she talking about? We are not seeing increased cases. We are not seeing increased infections, increased hospitalizations. We're not seeing increased deaths. Is there need to be worried? We should just stick with the protocols, right?
Well, I think we can do both. We can worry but not panic, and then we can also stick to the protocols and even be more mindful of the protocols than we've been. I think the cycle that we have in Ghana is that cases go up, we get scared, we start obeying the protocols. Cases go down, we let our guard down. We start socializing and having big social events, and then we have a surge again. So now more than ever, we have to be very careful because the third wave is taking hold across the continent, and it's mostly driven by the Delta variant, like we said earlier this week. And yes, we've detected it here in travelers, but we don't know if it's in the community yet. We are still monitoring that, and we know that it's more transmissible than the Alpha variant, which has dominated local transmission for the last few months. So we have to be mindful that we don't allow the Delta variant to take root in the community because it will have devastating consequences, especially because our vaccination rates are so low. As a country, we've only fully vaccinated 400,000 or less of our people, and most of these are in Accra. So if the Delta variant takes hold in the community, then we could be in for a very tough time over the next few months.
Is that why we should be concerned about what is happening in the Ashanti region? Listening to Dr. Michael Owusu over the past 2 weeks or so, they seem to have had a bit of an upsurge in the cases that they are recording. Are you looking at a bit of a trend graph with that?
Yeah, I'm watching that carefully. In fact, we at WAGBIB will be very happy to sequence some of those samples, to see what variant it is that is causing that apparent surge. Now, it's just a few days or just a week or so we shouldn't, rush to conclusions that is a new wave. But we have to keep monitoring. We have to sequence the viruses that are spreading over there and see if there are some of the new variants that we may be experiencing. So that's something we need to really keep a close eye on.
You spoke about the Delta variant, and we know the havoc that is wreaked elsewhere in other, one would say, tropical countries around the world. Listening, and I don't mean I don't mean to bust heads with you and other persons in the medical profession, but there are those who feel your announcement of caution has been downplayed. And they say, look, it's just 2 persons we saw at Kotoka. There is no cause for alarm. How worried should we really be by this Delta variant?
Well, we need to just look around the world and then realize that we have to be worried. I don't know how else to say this. In all the countries that the variant has taken hold, their cases are going up. Okay, that may not be accompanied by increased deaths and hospitalizations, but the cases are going up, which means that transmission is going up. And once transmissions are going up, it means that eventually we'll lose a few people if transmissions go up. So I don't think we should take it lightly at all. This is a very vicious variant, and we shouldn't play around with it. And as for the fact of about just in 2 people, all the variants, they start with 1 person bringing it. Okay, all of them, that's how they start. So you cannot downplay the detection of the variant in 2 people. In any case, we are only sampling a very small percentage of the positive cases. If you look at the number of samples that we sequence, it's a very minute fraction of the positive cases. So if we have detected it in 2 people, you can extrapolate that to find how many people could have brought it already, because it's only a small percentage we are sequencing. So think about it that way. We're not sequencing everybody.
Interesting. I will come back to you on another matter of testing, but I just want to also hear from Dr. Kwame Sapong Asiedu from the CDD. Dr. Asiedu, good morning.
Good morning, Kodo.
Yes, thank you for making time with us on the big issue this morning. Professor Wandari ends on the note of testing, and I've seen those who are saying at the moment we are testing 5 persons per 100,000 of our population. That is really, really low if these numbers are to be believed.
Well, yes, you cannot dispute the numbers because globally the testing is reported. So if you go, for example, to Johns Hopkins or our world in data, the numbers we are testing are there. The other thing we know, like Professor Wandari alluded to, is the fact that anyone who uses our international airports does an antigen test because it's part of the travel requirements to Ghana. That is reported as part of our daily testing. So if you take that number out of our total daily testing we report, you would realize and agree with Professor Wandari that in-country testing is extremely low. In fact, if you did that, it comes much lower than the 5 to 100,000 you're talking.
But what happened? What happened? Because in the early stages we were testing, we questioned the rate of testing, but at least we were testing. Now it looks like outside of Kotoka, testing doesn't really happen anywhere.
No, the truth of the matter is we have had this testing wave in cognizance with our changing number of cases. It's been going on since the pandemic came into the country. And it's also a wave that's similar to our behavior when it comes to the protocols. When we have, like now people are talking about COVID, suddenly we would increase testing. When it goes, we increase testing, we would increase compliance because people are talking about COVID. And then when it goes down, we stop testing and our compliance also goes down. The problem with that is that this is a virus where asymptomatic cases are a lot, number one, and therefore they stay in the community for a long time. So the people who may be very mildly symptomatic might be spreading in the community without even knowing because they are not getting hospitalized. What then happens is that as the exponential rate increases, because now we are dealing with a variant that has a reproductive number between 5 and 8. And if you put it in context, the one that came from Wuhan was between 2.4 and 2.6. The one that got to Europe was 3. The one that appeared in Kent was 4 to 5. So now you're dealing with an animal that is 3 times more dangerous than the original animal that came out of China. Because 2.6 at the highest band to 8 is about 3 times more. So as they spread, you have to know that a proportion of these would then get sicker, would then get hospitalized, would then get severely ill, and a proportion of that would get critically ill. And unfortunately, like Professor Wandari said, a proportion of those would lose their life. The problem happening in Africa currently, if you listen to President Felix Tshisekedi on the 12th of June, where he said that hospitals in Kinshasa were overwhelmed, and then you look at last week, the mortalities that happened in Kinshasa, then you look at Uganda, and a similar pattern is happening. We cannot afford to wait for the hospitalizations to start before we intervene. And that is why I agree with, Professor Wandari, that when you detect 2, that is when to pull the brakes. And that is why you realize that countries like Rwanda have gone into a total lockdown, albeit they've not had a lot of the Delta variant come in. So for me, seeing people, mass gatherings and all that going on, when we've seen 2, and at the end of this note, you see, this virus is a very tricky virus. There's something called the latent period, and I'd want to break it down because we don't want to be too technical on such a program.
Certainly. Let's communicate science in a friendly manner.
Yes, the time between when you first get infected and when it is that infection is detectable even by PCR is a number of days. It's 2 to 5 days. So there's a possibility that somebody can travel from United States or the UK, test negative to PCR in the UK, test negative to antigen at the airport because antigen is less sensitive, but still have the Delta variant, get into the community, be mildly symptomatic, and be spreading the virus. It's got nothing to do with inefficiency of our system. It's just got to do with the craftiness of this virus. And if you then just have one, and that's why when Professor Wandari talked about the number of sequencing, immediately I was concerned and I went to look at the Johns Hopkins dashboard. And I was like, this makes a lot of sense because if about between 1,000 and 1,500 people are using our airports on a daily basis, and let's say 5 people got in because they tested their PCR and antigen during their latent period, what does it mean for a population where less than 1% are totally vaccinated? And that is the sort of conversation we need to have. And that's why I would agree with him that this is the time to pull the brakes.
Newspaper editorials this week that have complained about the poor compliance. There seems to be a certain level of carelessness that one must admit is being led by the political elite as well as the general citizenry. Again, listening to Dr. Moeti, who says now is the time to sprint, but we do not see the kind of, one would say, mobilization we saw in the early days or even in the second phase where PPEs were being made available, hand sanitizers. Everything seems to have gone down the drain.
Yes. It's a very difficult one. You see, Ghana, and for that matter, Africa, found itself in a very peculiar situation. The evidence was that the initial strains that got into our countries disproportionately didn't make people below the age of 40 very sick, unless you had comorbid states. Africa has a very low median age of about 19.3 years. So our mortalities were low. And for many countries, they were not testing. But there was one thing that became apparent, especially in Ghana, that there were certain countries who were not testing. And so people felt they didn't have the virus in their country. But when we opened our borders on the 1st of September, we realized that people traveling from those countries and getting tested by antigen at our airports were testing positive, which meant that the virus was in those countries. You see, so I was looking at the, the Ghana data, and the data I get from some of my friends who work in the bank and who can tell you the countries from which the positives are coming. Obviously, I wouldn't disclose who they are, but I knew the countries initially from which the positives were coming. And I was like, Africa is playing a dangerous game here because in those countries that were not testing, and I can name one country specifically, Tanzania. There were a number of people who, in September of 2020, came to Ghana from Tanzania and tested positive at Kotuka. And I was thinking, Africa is playing a very dangerous game here because there can be mutations going on in these populations, and they wouldn't even be picked up by anybody, and they might be able to even evade vaccines. So now that we've got a variant that is has a reproductive number of about 5 to 8, yes, it is concerning for me that we are not doing the mobilization. I am just hoping that we are not going to wait until what happened in December when the multiplication is going on and we are at e to the exponent 8, and the e is about 1,000 cases, and we realize that 1,000 to the exponent 8 might give us a problem. And that is why when I see footage like what we saw from political rallies, from funerals and other things, I cringe. Because we are not mobilizing, but we are also creating the ecosystem for viral replication. First for transmission, let me put it first for contagion, then for transmission, and then for replication. We cannot cook this soup and expect that it wouldn't boil. If we create these 3 echo chambers, they would boil. Whereas Awundari is a microbiologist. He will tell you, you don't put anything on agar plate and say, I've cultured it and say it wouldn't grow. It's just not done. Once you put it on that agar and you've given it a medium on which it can replicate, it would replicate. It's basic microbiology. I've not done my microbiology in a number of years, but it's the basics that I was taught. That you put it on a culture medium that has enough substrate to feed, it would replicate. And we are doing exactly that, and that should worry us.
Yeah. So let me just add that to re-emphasize the point that from the work that we've done, the majority of the variants of concern that have come into the country, the people who have tested positive with variants of concern, the majority of them have come from African countries, just like he's saying. So if we hear Indian variant, then we assume that the person bringing the Indian variant is coming from India. It's not the case. You find that people are coming from neighboring countries, and they have all these wild variants. And that's, just underscoring the point that Dr. Siedu is saying, is that we cannot take anything for granted and think that, if we pay attention to only people coming from India and so on and so forth. The other thing is that the UK, now the Indian variant has taken over the UK. So you can imagine the amount of traffic between Ghana and the UK in terms of air travel. And the last point is that I just wanted to clarify that testing rates and sequencing rates are totally different things.
Okay.
So the testing rates, if you think testing rates are low, sequencing rates are even lower, because testing is just to say you have COVID or you don't have COVID.
Yes.
Then for the sequencing, we have to take that sample and then find out which variant you have. You understand? We take from the positive sample. So imagine if they tested 1,000 people and 100 were positive, then we'd come in and take 5 of the 100 to do sequencing. So it's, in the end, we're sequencing only 5 out of, maybe 10,000 people who came through the airport. You understand?
Yeah.
So it's a very small percentage we're sequencing. So if you've detected 2, you don't downplay that, because you can scale that up to the number of people. I mean, as a percentage of the people you haven't tested. You understand? And so for me, I think the best approach is to assume that once you've picked it up at the airport, you should assume that it could be in the community and take measures as if it's in the community to stop it. Otherwise, you're going to be surprised that all of a sudden you have a lot of cases just blowing up in your face. So I think it's better to assume that it's probably in the community and take steps as such, rather than to sort of say that, it's only at the airport, so let's not worry.
Now, and this goes to both of you, but I'll start from Dr. Kwame Sapon-Esiedu. You made mention of the fact that, for instance, Rwanda has decided to shut down for a while, just so that they can come to grips with this. We've seen other countries as well do this. I recall being in Namibia not too long ago, and the day they recorded the first case was the day they shut down as well. Do you think that perhaps we might need to change the strategy that we have employed over the past year or so to try and mitigate these circumstances, or in its current form, it is fine?
Interesting question. The straight answer to you is we don't need to change anything. I've always said this thing about Ghana. We have fine laws. What we lack is implementation. Look, this is a virus. There's one thing that happened in the UK, and from a microbiological standpoint, it's very important in explaining what I'm saying. Because people were compliant with the wearing of face masks when the law was made, last winter, there was no flu. There was absolutely no flu.
Really?
Yes, you can go and check the data. Yes. And so now, even the UK is panicking that this winter, the strain of the flu virus that may come out may be very difficult to tell, because they try and sequence and determine, that's how the flu vaccine is made, and determine the most prevalent strain. Especially they'll go to Australia because they'll look at the southern hemisphere and then the northern hemisphere. So it's a game that they play to try and be ahead of the virus. Because of the face masks, the flu was extremely low, because all these respiratory viruses are transmitted through droplets, breathing, and all that. So if you are masked, they don't go. So whether the reproductive number is 2 million or not, wearing your face mask is key. Washing your hands is key. Social distancing is key. Avoidance of crowds is key. So if you ask me, should we change tact? No. We have got the non-pharmacological processes right. What we haven't got right is the leadership and the enforcement of those non-pharmacological processes. If you see your president, your vice president, senior police officers, the chief justice attending a funeral at a time that you have a variant circulating with a reproductive number of 5 to 8. And then you then hear that there's a riffle in the Ashanti region, Kumasi specifically, weeks after. And like Professor Wandari is saying, to be interesting for them to sequence, for us to know what's going on in that place. Then the same people come back to Accra. And a couple of weeks later, you see them in the northeast and northern region with school children, not wearing face masks. And you ask me, should we change that? No, we shouldn't change that. We should lead properly. That is why, you see, when I come to conversations like this, I really want to state the point that we let ourselves down often, and we need to stop letting ourselves down. So like you said, you were in Namibia. They saw the first one, they shut down. That was exactly what Professor Wandari was saying. You've seen two, you cut the brakes. With us, we cannot shut down, we cannot afford it. I've had this conversation. So you go through enforcement, face mask, social distancing, down the street. And then you decrease the likelihood of transmissibility. And through that, you decrease community spread. We are not doing that. And because we are not doing that, it's only a matter of time. Unfortunately, sometimes you don't want to say this, but it's only a matter of time, especially in a population where less than 1% is fully vaccinated. I just checked the data, and 382,000 Ghanaians are fully vaccinated. That doesn't cut it.
I am
and
reserving.
That is where we need to get here.
I'm reserving the vaccination question for the second part of our conversation, because, and I might defer to you a bit more, to yourself and frankly more than Professor Gordon Awandai, because it's become a bit of a political conversation. So you might be more comfortable having that conversation than Professor Awandai.
No. The truth of the matter is, Prof has to have the conversation as well, because you see, there's something that goes on in this country when it comes to scientific discussion that sometimes concerns me.
Which is?
The beauty of scientific discussion is the fact that we can disagree even on the same set of data. When Professor Wendari spoke about the effectiveness of the vaccines, the data available was as at the Thursday of that week from Public Health England. Subsequent to him speaking, because I work in that sector, there was new data that we released on the Monday. So when I was called to speak on the matter, I had the latest data in my hand, and I said, no, based on the current data, which was 4 days old, and you have to bear in mind that 400,000 people are vaccinated a day in the UK. So 4 days old data means 1.6 million people on average. That's a huge sample size to make a decision from. So it was clear. If you look at the data from the Thursday before, it said not predictable as to whether the effectiveness against the Delta strain. On the Monday, there was clear data on hospitalization, on preventing mild infection and death. Death was 96%, hospitalization is 92%, and preventing symptomatic infection is 64%. That same data was then released by AstraZeneca. So I struggled with the flack that Professor Wendari had to take, because I was like, wait a minute, I have been called that Thursday. I probably would have said the same thing, because that is what the data said. And that's why we are scientists. We can only speak to the data. We cannot speak to outer space. And so if you, on that basis, say you shouldn't have the conversation, I'll disagree, because we have to have those conversations. That is why we are scientists. And that is why some of us, irrespective of the barrage we've received all through this, have stuck by it, because we'll speak to the data as and when it's available.
Yeah. So, let me just add that I totally agree that as scientists, we need to continue to speak. Even if it's misunderstood and taken out of context, we have to continue to speak, because providing accurate information about a pandemic such as this is very important for the people. And I think we shouldn't underestimate the capacity of our people to understand the nuances of the science that we speak. Just a little bit more to the question about efficacy. You see, when you talk about efficacy of a vaccine, like Kwame mentioned, there are 3 or 4 different levels of it. First, is the vaccine able to prevent you from being infected? Second, if you get infected, is the vaccine able to prevent you from getting sick at all? That means getting symptoms. Third, if you get symptoms, is the vaccine able to prevent you from getting severe symptoms? Fourth, if you get severe symptoms, would you die? Now, if you take those in reverse order, the basic protection is preventing you from getting sick or prevent you from dying or getting severe disease. Those are the most fundamental that we want. So the majority of the vaccines we have, they're able to achieve those two. You understand? So if you use only those two as your criterion or criteria for whether vaccines are efficient or effective or not, the majority of the vaccines will always pass. You understand? If you move to preventing symptomatic infections and preventing infections altogether, that's where you start to see significant difference between the vaccines, some as low as 50% to as high as 90% and so on and so forth. So when we are discussing these things, we need to understand what we are referring to. If I make a statement generally that I think that for these new aggressive variants, the data shows that the Pfizer one is more effective overall. That means all these levels of protection, not just protection from death and hospitalization, but overall protection. The Pfizer one has performed better against the variants, the newer variants, the more aggressive ones. Mm-hmm. That's what I was saying. And I was saying that moving forward, let's diversify our vaccine procurement portfolio. Let's not be fixed on only 2 types of vaccines. Let's get more. Let's get Pfizer in addition into the mix, because we don't know what variants are coming. Every few months, we're going to have new variants. We don't know how they're going to behave. So if you have a repertoire of vaccines, then you have a better chance of combating the variants. And remember that protection is not just death and hospitalization. Protection is the desired protection, the ultimate desired protection is to prevent you from getting infected at all. Because when you see the countries which have been fully vaccinated, but the cases are surging, it's because the vaccines are not protecting against infection. They are protecting against hospitalization and death, but they are not protecting against infection. And if you want to get to herd immunity, there has to be some effective protection against infection to stop the virus from circulating. And that's what you call herd immunity. So if we do not have vaccines that can do a combination of the above, then we cannot get to herd immunity where we can be free to walk around without mask. Okay, so yes, it is complex, and the media may just take one sentence and make a big deal out of it. But I think that the Ghanaian people are competent enough to understand these things if the media will break these things down for them the way we are doing here. Last point about what we should do differently. Let's give credit to the government. Even though the contract for the airport testing may be controversial in terms of the procurement and the pricing and all that, it has been effective at stopping the influx of, variants, okay? So when we do testing at the airport, the samples we get from the airport to sequence, we find a huge range of variants in these, travelers. When you go to the community, you don't find some of them, which means that this, system has helped to reduce the influx of, wild variants from other countries. So that is something that has been working well to that extent. This is not about whether it's, the procurement was properly done or what. This is just science that when we look at the variants in people who arrive at the airport and test positive, and you look at the variants in people in the community, you find that the wild variants are coming from travelers. And if we are able to pick up most of them through the airport testing and do the mandatory quarantine, then we are reducing the influx. It will not be completely shut because, like Kwame explained, because of the incubation period of 3 days or so, some people may even get infected on the plane. And when they arrive, they will not test positive. They'll go home and the disease will develop and they start spreading it. So you will never be able to catch 100% of the people through the testing at the airport. But at least you are reducing significantly the number of infected people who are entering the country. And that has worked well, and we should maintain that. So let's maintain that. Let's make it more effective. Let's enforce the wearing of masks and all the protocols, especially the social gatherings. It is, it's just madness that we're still having big funerals and big weddings. I just don't get it. What is the point of taking this risk? So those things we need to stop. We need to be disciplined enough to stop those things. Let's diversify the vaccine portfolio so that we are ready for the variants that are coming. There will be wilder, more aggressive variants. Let's have a diverse range of vaccines.
No, all right then. Thank you, Professor Wandai. We'll take a quick break. When we return, I'll talk to Franklin and then we'll wrap up.
Bonsoir, monsieur. Madame. Et voilà.
Babe, what is this?
This is the escargot. The foie gras. Oui.
Where did she go?
You pa one kasa who say oba say your pay feedian.
It's been long since you ever felt like this.
Welcome to the best in Ghanaian entertainment on Akwaba Magic. Efie. Welcome home to Akwaba Magic on DSTV channel 150. It's your moment. DSTV.
Tough on stains with longer lasting freshness. New Omo Extra Fresh with longer lasting freshness.
Welcome back. Still having the conversation on COVID and why we should be worried about this new Delta variant. Franklin, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, and have you been maintaining the protocols? Have you been practicing them?
Oh, yes, I have.
even though I must admit that in terms of following the news on the vaccine issues, I've probably become just like any ordinary Ghanaian who is not taking the news about it so seriously, simply because, as my good friend Dr. Sidu suggests, we probably have been led to believe that, well, this vaccine is far away from, the danger is still it's not so closer again. Yeah, so I've been observing the protocols. I do whenever I go out. And so, yes, that's an answer to your question.
But on the matter of this vaccine controversy, what have you made of the minority leaders' call this week that this so-called middleman business in procurement of vaccines should be removed and a probe instituted, and also still sticking with an investigation into this whole Frontiers healthcare operations at the Kotoka International Airport? That matter does not seem to want to die.
Well, as you know, politicians never let crisis moments go waste, as I've always said. And so somehow, for me, I knew that it was just a matter of time, that the whole procurement around these rather interesting and needed vaccines was going to blow out the way it's blown out already. I think everything ought to be done in order to not to make those who have invested in us, especially the World Bank, giving almost $200 million, and anybody else who has given us money for vaccines should feel let down at all. And I worry a lot more because, as the scientists we've heard this morning are suggesting, that there might even be the opportunity to mix vaccines. In fact, I know that the German Chancellor actually took a Moderna after AstraZeneca. And I've seen that some scientists have suggested, experts have suggested that that could help, boost immunity against the new variant. Now, if you're not able to handle single vaccines purchases, I'm wondering what the opportunities would be for mixed vaccines anyway. So that's not to quarrel with the science, but to quarrel with the procurement processes. I was worried when I heard one, forgotten who it was from government, who suggested that anybody who can show us where to purchase Sputnik vaccines for $10 per jab should come with that data, and that they are ready to procure the vaccines at any cost because Ghanaians have to be saved. Now, while you hear that, a part of me believes that, well, that's a public official who is bent on saving lives. So somehow it is counterintuitive to be arguing with him as to why they are procuring vaccines using middlemen, because at all costs they have to save lives. The other end of the conversation, though, is that while doing that, you're actually living dangerously by exposing everybody else to the very disease you want to protect us from, which is what Bami CD is suggesting, that you cannot be suggesting to us that this disease is dangerous and that you should be left alone to procure anyhow, but at the same time, be left alone again to decide how you would go about observing the protocols in the public sphere. I think those two do not match at all. So the vaccine question is a very big one. The procurement obviously is one that ought to be looked into. And again, we do not have a lot of data to be able to analyze what's been happening. I think the contorted or the rather contradictory statement from government agencies and officials who are speaking to this vaccine matter, I'm talking about the procurement, must be put to bed by giving us a lot more information as to whether they are procuring, how much you are procuring, what are the margins like, and if we were better off under a particular facility. This is not something we should play with at all. And as everybody has suggested, the new variant is dangerous. My worry is that while expressing how dangerous it is, we may be giving excuses for more nebulous approaches or attempts to procure these vaccines anyway. But it's a chicken and egg situation. I guess we should just all be vigilant and ensure that the right steps are followed in procuring the vaccines.
Thank you, Franklin. And let me just take a couple of messages before we go. So Xylix Dwayne says, I'm even tired of our leaders. You want vaccines and we're still having large gatherings in the country. Jones Odoboy says, good morning, Goffred. The increased number of COVID-19 cases in the Ashanti region should be laid squarely at the footsteps of the president and his appointees. Master Planner Junior Kintampo sent a message on previous conversations we've had. Why did the NDC set up a committee in 2016 to review the contracts they themselves signed? That same committee recommended for the termination of this mortiferous and deadly contract. It was on this report that the MPP government relied on to terminate the contract. It's very shameful. They are still defending this mess. We've created a system where two parties point out whose mistake is greatest to justify their wrong. If Ghana were a company, all people involved in creating this laws would have incurred some disciplinary action. According to that one, let me just take a few more and then we will call it a day. Let's see what this one says. Stephen from Hohoi says, to paraphrase a former president, when I am sent to race on the back of a horse with weak or broken legs, don't blame me for losing. The government who is cleaning your mess cannot be blamed for your weakness. David from Tema is very upset this morning. He says, sadly, we are this MPP NDC political insanity again. Let us grow up. So on that note, I will say a big thank you. Dr. Kwame Sapon, CEDU Democracy and Development Fellow, CDD Ghana, thank you. And also to Professor Gordon Awandare from WACBIP, WACC, BIP, and also to Franklin Kujo, President of Imani Africa. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Big Issue. We'll be back next week at 9 a.m. Again, my name is Godfrey Akoto-Boafo. Have a good weekend.